King Cole's Unforgettable brings on that unforgettable armor. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's not unforgettable. That great program, Viewpoint, the one on WLCN. You something about that?
It isn't your memory, sweetheart. That's your life.
How are you this morning, Mrs. Busby?
Oh, it's well, thank you. And
Viewpoint
yourself?
program of we have a personality and we have a perspective this morning. We're going to leave the politicians out again happily, which reminded me of a famous quote I saw Adlai Stevenson made a long time ago, 1952. Boy, that's a long time ago. And this is apropos certainly what we just went through in November and way before then. And old Adlai says, I offer my opponents a bargain. If they will stop telling lies about us, I'll stop telling the truth about them. All right, okay.
That's one thing you can say about a political race, is that
incredible.
You might just as well listen to nothing. One lies and the other one swears to it. It's just on and on and on. You can't learn anything about where anybody stands or anything else.
Well, we proved that November. All right. We always try to start, Mr. Hall.
Jim, he's a little biased, okay?
Did I lose control of this meeting already this morning? Ron, we always try to start the Viewpoint with a kudo or two, and one I can come up with right now today, Mrs. Busby, the Salvation Army bell ringers. You know, that's a selfless little bit of volunteering they all do, stand out there all day long, and they take some of them take pretty long shifts, and I mentioned it this morning because the other day I went out and there was a mother and a young daughter, and I'd say the little girl was probably around 6, and they each had some music, and they were singing original carols, the regular, genuine Christmas carols.
Oh, the old-fashioned.
The old-fashioned Christmas, none of this junk stuff. Anyway, they stand there and ringing the bell, of course, and they're singing the Christmas carol from the music. And I thought that was pretty neat. Pretty hard to pass up a little child doing that, you know.
Oh, really?
And so kudos to those
Well,
folks.
I have one as well.
All righty.
You know,
she owns 50% of the show, so she can do what she wants, right?
She can talk whenever she wants. That's good.
Yeah, anytime.
even if she's a girl.
Oh, okay.
You know, there are times in your life when things aren't tip top. You know,
I think I know somebody's experienced a lot of that.
When the chips get a little bit down, and you know how lucky we are to live in the community, the greater community that we live in. Mm-hmm. The people are so supportive and so kind and so thoughtful and prayerful, and I'd just like to say I'm just proud to be a part of Lincoln, Logan County, Central Illinois. It's a beautiful place to live. People care.
They do. We're really lucky about that. And to that end, if anybody would have a comment or two about that particular subject, 648-5510, we'd be happy to hear from you. And by the way, during the course of the morning, as we're talking with Mr. Hull, we'd be happy if anybody to chime in on that subject too. So with further ado, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest this morning?
Yeah, I've known Ron Hall for 100 years, I think, right?
Not quite 100.
86.
But he's working on it.
Okay.
He's working on it.
Anyway, Ron is involved with Crime Stoppers. And what the song that comes to mind, speaking of songs, is What the World Needs Now, is some Crime Stoppers. And we're all familiar with that title because you see it on your television. Right along during the news, they'll have somebody rob the convenience store or the gas station, and if you have any idea who this person is, call Crime Stoppers. And we have that right here in our own community, and we want to talk about where it came from and how it works and how we can participate to keep ourselves and our friends and neighbors more safe.
Yeah, you know, Judith, I get around once in a while. Gene lets me out once a week, and as much as I get around, I was surprised to know, until you told me about Ron, that we actually have a Crime Stopper organization in this community. So we're glad to have you aboard here, Ron, to talk about that. And so let's address from the as they say, let's take it from the top, or the beginning. When did this start, and how did it get organized here in Logan County?
Well, Bill, I appreciate the opportunity to be here to let people know in Lincoln, Logan County about the Crime Stopper unit we have. We were affiliated with the State Association. We were one of the first units with the State Association for Crime Stoppers. We were formed in August of 1983. We are a 501c3. We're approaching 30 years next year for Crime Stoppers. It is Lincoln Logan Crime Stoppers. It represents Lincoln and Logan County. So really any crimes, anything that's seen by the public can be called in. Our phone number is 732-3000. That is an answering machine that's monitored at the Logan County Safety Complex. It's checked daily, if not more than that. All tips that are phoned in, they're assigned a case number. So the advisors, we have a city police advisor, monthly meetings. He brings the information to us if we have tips called in, and we have a sliding scale of guidelines for monies and payouts. Depending on the crime, as long as an arrest is made, we can pay out. Our board, like I said, meets monthly at the Logan County Farm Bureau. We're always looking for new blood. So if they want to call, I'll just give my home phone number. They could call 735-4072. But we meet monthly, go through whatever tips have been called in. They're discussed. Depending on the severity of crime, we have a sliding scale. We have all the way from misdemeanors up to Class X murders. We have paid out quite a bit over the years, and with the case numbers being assigned, we're probably over 300 case numbers since 1983.
From whence cometh the money, Ron?
All our monies presently come from the Logan County Probation Department. They're the funnel. The judicial system, any case other than traffic cases are levied a $25 fine. So the money is paid to the probation department, and we receive monies from them. It's strictly from the judicial system.
Okay.
And all of your board members, all of the folks are involved in Crime Stoppers, whether they're board members or not. That, of course, is all a volunteer activity.
Correct. It's all volunteer organization. We have government workers. We have self-employed people. We have teachers. Presently, the board's 11 to 12 individuals, but we're always looking, and I know the rest of the board members won't like it, I'm going to say new blood. We're not all spring chickens, but we're always looking for new blood, fresh ideas. There's a lot more we could do if we had more membership, I'll put it that way.
Can you kind of give us a thumbnail sketch of what your policies and procedures are, what you do at this time, and what new things you'd like to be able to institute?
One of the big things that we're extremely proud of, in cooperation with the Logan County Sheriff's Department and the Lincoln City Police Department, we have a fingerprint program. It's all computerized. It's not the old ink pad like the old days, where I'm sure Bill knows what I'm talking about when I say the old days and the fingerprint pads.
Well,
yeah.
I think we both had to do that in order to be volunteers at the two prisons in town. I remember having my fingers rolled and printed.
Well, that's just all the military. When we went in, we were fingerprinted.
Sure.
That's a sign of the times for all of that.
Now, this is not, and I had this confused in my mind when Judith and I talked about this, a neighborhood watch. And so, and we read and have read in the media or heard it somewhere, we've had these unusual and unfortunate incidents like that matter down in Florida where this fellow Zimmerman shot this young black boy. These things can go awry, so we have to be very, very careful about taking matters into our own hands, such as seem to apparently happen down there.
I agree 100%. I just want to stress that I use the term wannabe cops. We are not wannabe cops. We don't have that we have to affiliate with them all the time and things like that. We're just a group of concerned citizens and do what we can to help, but without carrying a badge and a gun. We're a tool. I'll use the word tool for the police to use.
Well, we have two great police enforcement agencies in this county.
Oh, yes.
Logan County and, of course, Lincoln. And I'm certain to a lesser degree, because they're smaller, the surrounding communities that have folks that are constables or something like that, neighborhood police.
We have a board member that's been doing that for quite some time.
But it's amazing to somebody who's even as old as I am and is still very naive about the potentiality of crime. We apparently have a lot more that goes on in this county than we realize. And if young Brian Clemens were able to be here, and we're sorry he couldn't be with us this morning, he had a further commitment. But if he or some other representative of the police department would tell us what they're allowed to tell us, which they have to be very careful about, I'm sure Judy and I and Jim and the listeners would suddenly understand there's a heck of a lot more going on that we realize.
What you're talking about, Bill, I agree 100%, but everything we do not hear, it's because it's under investigation. We've discovered that one crime possibly leads to another and to another. It's surprising how a lot of these things go hand in hand. I am not a member of law enforcement. There's a lot of individuals that share the same feelings that you have, but you can't expect law enforcement to put out information and then jeopardize an ongoing investigation or a case. We affiliate, now I'm talking about the law enforcement field, Logan County and Lincoln. They affiliate with the state and surrounding counties, I'm sure, with different things. But as far as our Crime Stopper organization, we're just there to help out. We're a tool. That's all we are.
And we should all be to some greater or lesser degree.
Oh, yes.
I think the words I hate most are, I don't want to get involved.
Right.
Because I'm sorry, if you're breathing this air and walking on this earth, you're involved.
That's correct.
And don't pass the buck. You know, I'm sure we all remember that awful story out of New York, that girl who was murdered and was screaming, and the people looked out their windows and thought, wow. But nobody did anything. Nobody wanted to get involved.
Correct.
There's a fine line. Now, of course, if that's pretty blatant, and those folks obviously had to know something serious was going down in there. But there's a fine line. Let's say, well, I see something that I think is perhaps, in my mind, suspect, but maybe it's very, very innocent. You have to be very careful about say, I saw this, and maybe I better report it. Are there some guidelines there, Ron?
As far
common
as
sense, I suppose, is
common
the best
sense.
guideline.
Common sense prevails on a lot of these things. I mean, you can tell the difference between somebody paying for a pack of cigarettes and putting a pack of cigarettes in their coat pocket. You'd be surprised how much retail theft that goes on, and especially around the holidays. But you have to use your own judgment on if you see a crime, you call it in. I mean, we get tips all the time through the police departments, through the officers themselves, and they do not use the Crime Stopper hotline. And you know, we don't know anything about those, so it's a do-gooder situation.
I want to repeat that line. Now, that's 732-3000. Is that the correct number?
732-3000.
Somebody might be disposed to pick up a phone call 911. Well, that's absolutely the wrong thing to do, because that's a special service at 911.
They can pass that right along, though, Bill. There's a lot of people will call the city police department or the county sheriff's department, and they'll actually talk to an officer. So there's a lot of tips, I'm sure, that bypass our hotline, which is good, because if they don't know the number, they at least have enough sense to call the law enforcement agencies.
Now, do you have here in this chapter, if that's the right word, of Crime Stoppers, do you have an affiliation then with others in central Illinois or Illinois? Is there an Illinois Association of Crime Stopper units?
We are affiliated with the Illinois State Crime Stoppers Association. We receive information whenever they deem it necessary to send out to the different, I'll call it chapters also. But there's, around our county, every county has a Crime Stopper unit. The smaller counties may be affiliated. I think Menard County is affiliated with Sangamon. Some counties go 3 counties in one. We've just always stayed by ourselves for whatever reason. But we are affiliated. They have state association meetings yearly at different locations in the state where everybody gets together, and I'll use the word networking. You can find out a lot more after a meeting than during a meeting, because the questions you want to ask, people are more willing to open up. So
Perhaps you...
If it's not a formal thing,
Oh,
a formal
correct.
statement. You might address the anonymity, too. People who call
it's all, we do not know anybody's name. When they call in on the answering machine, they are assigned a case number. I'm not saying we don't have people that call regular, because I don't know names. But that's one thing we stress. Nobody on our board wants to know a name. That's statewide. Nobody wants to know a name. That's up to law enforcement. We go strictly by a case number. So the police officer may know who they are when they actually meet with them.
do the police and sheriff's office actually hear the tape? Because the reason I'm asking that is there would be voices that they may recognize because they've dealt with them before.
I'm not saying we don't have the same person that calls in occasionally, but and the police officer may recognize the name. But when the advisor listens to the tape, there's a form he has to fill out, and this is law enforcement. I'm saying this just because I've seen the form. They fill it out, and I'm sure they pass it along to respective detectives on the city or the county side, and they go from there. It's from there, that's their tip. And then they investigate it. If things pan out, arrest is made, it comes back to us as a board, and we discuss, depending on the seriousness of the crime, we have a maximum and minimum amount of monies that can be rewarded for tips.